بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا وقدوتنا وراحة قلوبنا محمد وآله وأصحابه ومن دعا بدعوته واستنى بسنته واهتدى بهديه إلى يوم الدين. ما بعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. On Wednesdays we continue our series on, we were talking about the ideal father, the ideal parent. And one of the examples that we see from the life of the Prophet ﷺ, or one of his teachings rather, is the example of Abdullah ibn Abbas or Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. During the time of Uthman radiallahu anhu, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu was sick. So Uthman radiallahu anhu was the Khalifa of the time, so he visited him. And when he visited him, he asked him, how you're doing. And they were having a light conversation. And he says to Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu that, what do you complain about? So he says, Dunubi, I complain about my sins. So he says, La tashtaki, ma tashtaki. He says, Dunubi. He says, ma tashtaki, what do you desire? So he says, I desire rahmat Rabbi. I desire the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then he says to him, should I send you the physicians, the best physicians in Medina, so they can come and take a look at you? And so he says that, At-tabibu amradani, this sickness has been given to me by the doctors. Right? Don't get upset if you're a physician. He's just joking, right? And then he says to Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, Uthman radiallahu anhu, says that I wish and I desire to increase your allowance from the Baytul Mal. So the Sahaba, they used to get allowance based on, their, if they were from the Muhajirin, if they were Badri Sahaba and so on and so forth, they would get some allowance. So he says, I wish to increase this allowance that you get. So he says, La hajata li fiha, I don't have any need for that. I don't desire that. He says that, are you giving it to me because I have many daughters? I have, he had 6 daughters. So he says, are you giving this to me because I have, girls, and you think that once I pass away, then who's going to take care of them? So he says, Usman says, take it, they will be able to use it. So Abdullah bin Mas'ud was laying down. He was laying down. So he makes an effort to get up and sit himself up. And he says that I have heard from the Prophet ﷺ, Man qara'a surat al-waqi'ati kulla laylatin lam tusibhu faqatun abada, that the house in which Surah al-Waqi'ah is recited every night, poverty and affliction can never enter that house. And I have taught my daughters this surah, and they recite it every night before they go to sleep with this conviction. And it was all about conviction, having iman. You and I also hear the virtues and the fada'il, but how much are we able to act upon it, right? And that's the difference, right? The Sahaba, they had so much conviction, so much belief in the words and the promises of the Prophet ﷺ, right? So one of the things is to have this, to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to build this conviction in the promises, in the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the promises of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. And when children were born in the families of the Sahaba, the verses that would be taught to them, right? The verses that the Prophet Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu says that whenever a child was born in the family of Abdul Muttalib, and in the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the first verse and as soon as they would be able to say something, the first verse that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sometimes would recite to them and make them memorize, one of the first verses was about the oneness and greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَقُلِ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ الَّذِي لَمْ يَتَّخِذْ وَلَدًا وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ شَرِيكٌ فِي الْمُلْكِ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ وَلِيٌّ مِّنَ الذُّلِّ وَكَبِّرْهُ تَكْبِيرًا. It's the last verse of Surah Bani Israel. Right? And the ulama have written, and the mufassirin have written something ajib about this verse, that this verse is negating the shirk of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in 3 different ways. Sometimes we need, for something to get done, we use our network, we use our resources, we use our friendship. For sometimes with someone who might be less capable than us, or someone younger than us. Sometimes we use a resource that is equal to us, maybe in age, maybe in capabilities. And sometimes we go a level above. And in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is negating shirk in all of its forms. لَمْ يَتَّخِذْ وَلَدًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not have any child. وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ شَرِيكٌ فِي الْمُلْكِ. There is no partner of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ وَلِيٌّ مِّنَ الذُّلِّ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not need anyone. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not weak, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not, there's no condition in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala needs support or help from. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, is ajiz of that. He doesn't need anyone's support. So this was, Anas ibn Malik used to say that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this was one of the first verses that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would teach children who are able to speak, right? To inculcate the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah, next time I'll talk about one of the moving incidents from the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is something also that we should inculcate in our children, is when times are difficult, times are hard, no matter what, they should be able to stand up for their siblings, right? And we will talk about two incidents. One is the incident when Hamza radiallahu anhu, before he has even accepted Islam, he just comes to Makkah, and the slave girl of Abdullah bin Jada'an tells him that Abu Jahl, everybody knows the incident, right? Abu Jahl hit the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in front of all the people, especially of his family, in front of the Kaaba. And this woman goes and tells Hamza radiallahu anhu. And Hamza radiallahu anhu had not accepted Islam at this time, right? He comes, he's just returning from a trip. He goes and he beats up Abu Jahl. It's the first time that someone laid a hand on Abu Jahl, right? And in front of everyone. And then he proclaims that I have accepted Islam, even though he had not, right? So it's all about, the Prophet ﷺ, we know he didn't have any siblings. He didn't have a brother or sister, right? And Hamza radiallahu anhu is almost the same age, right? They were nursed by the same ladies, they had, in that sense, they were brothers. So Hamza radiallahu anhu standing up for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam later on, when he enters Makkah, he asks Abbas radiallahu anhu, his uncle, to go and find Utbah and Mu'tab. Who are Utbah and Mu'tab? They are the sons of Abu Lahab. Tabbat yada Abi Lahab wa Tab, right? He had three sons, Utayba, Utbah, and Mu'tab. Utayba was already killed. The Prophet ﷺ made a dua on him that, oh Allah, you put one of your dogs on him, and he was eaten up by a lion during one of the travels. Two survived, Mu'tab and Utbah, right? And so when the Prophet ﷺ enters into Makkah, he sends Abbas radiallahu anhu in search for them. Inshallah, we'll talk about that next time. The thing that's important is to realize here that the Prophet ﷺ, despite all of the difficulties that were laid on by the parents of these brothers, right? The Prophet ﷺ tells Abbas radiallahu anhu that I have asked Allah for Utbah and Mu'tab, and I have asked Allah to accept Utbah and Mu'tab, and I have asked openly, sirran wa alaniya, I have asked openly, and I have asked in my individual time, one-on-one with Allah. I have asked Allah to give me Utbah and Mu'tab. Inshallah, we'll talk about that next time. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to fulfill the rights of our children. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq. Wa akhir dawana alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.